Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm Arif and I welcome you all to lecture number 7 on the subject of computer organization and assembly language programming. The title of today's session is Data Storage Part 2. Well, in the last session we discussed the different encoding schemes or representations for storing signed and unsigned integer numbers. Today we will see how we can encode real numbers. We will start with the fixed point representation of real numbers and its limitation. Then we will discuss in detail about the floating point representation of real numbers, the need of IEEE 754 standard, which was adopted in 1985. We will talk about its range and precision. We will understand how various floating point arithmetic operations are carried out. We will talk about the concept of underflow and overflow, as well as some special values used in IEEE 754 standard. We have a lot to do today, so let's start playing. Most scientific computations are performed using real numbers, that is, numbers with fractional part. And in order to represent real numbers in computers, we have to ask two questions. The first is, how many bits are needed to encode a real number? And the second question is, how to represent a real number using these bits? Well, there are two possible ways to encode the real numbers: the fixed point representation and the floating point representation. So let us first discuss the fixed point representation of real numbers. Well, dear students, fixed point representation fixes the position of the binary point within a register. Therefore, fixes the sizes of the whole number as well as the fractional part of any real number stored inside it. Let us use 5 bits to represent unsigned real numbers by keeping 3 bits for the integral part and 2 bits for the fractional part, as shown in this table. You can see we have 3 bits for the integral part and 2 bits for the fractional part. So the range for this representation is from 000 to 111, that is from 0 to 7. And the precision, which means the smallest distance between two successive numbers for this representation, is 0.25. As you can see over here, between the two integral numbers 0 and 1, we have 1 over 4, 2 over 4, 3 over 4, these three fractional numbers in between these two integral numbers. And you all must be very familiar with the conversion of the binary number to the decimal equivalent and from the decimal number to its binary equivalent. And well, integer arithmetic also work for this, and there is no need to align the binary point. So this is the advantage of using this fixed point representation. Dear students, now answer a question of mine. If instead of using 3 bits for the integral part, we use 2 bits for the integral part and the remaining 3 bits for the fractional part, what will be the impact of this decision on the range and precision? Stop the video, think about the answer, and then move ahead. Okay, so most of you are right. the range will become 0 to 3 because we have 2 bits for the integral part, and the precision will become 2 raised to the power minus 3 or 1 over 8 or 0.125. So we have better precision but we have less range. Let us move ahead and talk about the fixed point representation using 16 bits. By keeping 1 bit for the sign, 11 bits for the integer part and 4 bits for the fractional part. Well, the range for this representation will be from minus 2047.9375 to plus 2047.9375, and I think you should be able to compute this. For the negative number we have a 1 over here. The 11 bits for the integer part are all ones, and the fractional part is also all ones. So this all sums up to these two values. As far as the precision is concerned, the smallest number that can be contained is, since we have 4 bits for the fractional part, is 2 raised to the power minus 4, which comes out to be 0.0625. Well, arithmetic and logic operations can be performed on fixed point numbers using integer arithmetic, thus increasing the performance. So in this case, we do not need any floating point unit inside the CPU. However, we do have the limitations of the fixed point representation. Well, as you can understand, to represent very large numbers, we need to give more bits to the integer part and less bits to the fractional part. But this will make hard to represent small numbers. Similarly, to represent very small numbers, we need to give more bits to the fractional part and less bits to the integer part, and this will make it hard to represent large numbers. So this is a chicken egg problem. So to summarize the limitations of fixed point representation, the first is we have limited integer range, we have small precision, and it is easy for an arithmetic operation to produce an over and underflow. Well, in this scenario, if we keep 11 bits for the integer part and 4 bits for the fractional part, the overflow will occur when the number is larger than 2047.9375. And similarly, an underflow, which means when the result is too small to fit in the representation, the underflow will occur when the number is smaller than 0.0625. So it cannot be represented in this scheme. So with these limitations in mind, let us move on to a floating point representation of real numbers. Dear students, the concept of floating point binary numbers was introduced in the mid-50s. It uses a scientific notation for storing the real numbers, thus increasing the range as well as the precision. One of the possible 16-bit representation is shown over here. The mantissa with its sign and the exponent with its sign were saved in 2's complement format in 8 bits each. But at that time there was no uniformity in the formats that are used to represent floating point numbers, and programs were of course not portable from one manufacturer's computer to the other, because if one computer is using 8-bit for mantissa and 8-bit for exponent, the other vendor might have designed it using 10 bits for mantissa and 6 bits for exponent. Well, to resolve the issue, a standards committee was formed by the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers to standardize how floating point binary numbers would be represented in computers. This standard, called IEEE 754 for floating point numbers, was adopted in 1985 by all computer manufacturers. It allowed porting of programs from one computer to another without the answers being different. This standard was updated in 2008 and then in 2019. The current standard is IEEE 754-2019. Well, dear students, instead of discussing different variants of floating point representations, let us understand as to how the IEEE 754 standard store or represent a real number. Well, a 32-bit floating point representation using IEEE 754 standard is shown over here. The sign of the real number is stored in the most significant bit, followed by 8-bit exponent and then a 23-bit mantissa. Well, the mantissa represents the precision or accuracy. To increase the precision, IEEE 754 standard uses a normalized mantissa, which implies that its most significant bit is always 1. So the mantissa has actually 24-bit precision, but only 23 bits need to be stored. We will soon see this when we will do some examples. Well, the exponent bits represent the range. To store the exponent and its sign, one can use 2's complement encoding, but the designers of IEEE 754 used something known as biased notation. And before I proceed, let us understand what is a biased notation and why the designers have preferred this biased notation on using the 2's complement encoding. So a $100 question, and that is, why does IEEE 754 designers used biased exponent representation? Well, over here the bits used to store the exponent and its sign are 8. To keep the calculation simple, let us assume that we have 4 bits to store the exponent. So in 4 bits, these are the possible combinations in binary. Starting from 000 to 1111. So this way the range of exponents that can be stored in 4 bits are from 0 to 15. And if we want to store negative exponents as well, we can use 2's complement to represent the exponent and its sign as shown over here. So this way we get equal number of positive and negative exponents, assuming this 0 as negative. Now question is, what if we want to store less number of negative values and more number of positive values in this exponent part? The solution is bias notation. One possible bias in this scenario is bias 5. To go from the true exponent to the bias exponent, you add 5. From -2, if you want to go to the biased exponent, you add 5. And from the biased exponent to the true exponent, you subtract 5. You subtract 5 from 9 and you fall back to 4. So this way we have an exponent range from -5 to +10. Less number of negative exponents and more number of positive exponents. Well, another possible bias in this scenario is bias 10. Over here, to go from the true exponent to the bias exponent, you add 10. So you add 10 to this, you go to 0, you add 10 to this minus 7, and you move to 3. And similarly, from the bias exponent to true exponent, you subtract 10. From 3, you subtract 10 and you come to minus 7. So this way we have exponent range from minus 10 to plus 5. That is more number of negative exponents and less number of positive exponents. Well, IEEE 754 designers used this formula for the bias. In this scenario where we are using 4 bits to store the exponent, the bias is 7. And the range of the exponent values that can be stored this way are from minus 7 to plus 8. That is one additional value on the positive side. Similarly, we can map this to this 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point storage with 8 bits for storing exponent, and the bias will be 127, and the range will be, of course, minus 127 to plus 128. So the range of 0 to 255 of a 8-bit number is encoded as an exponent value from 0 to 126 is considered negative. An exponent with a value of 127 represent 0. And an exponent value from 128 to 255 is considered positive. Okay, why exponent bits are before mantissa? Another $100 question. So in case of the fixed point, you might have observed that we have the integer part and then we have the fractional part, and in case of the floating point representation, we have the mantissa before the exponent. But the IEEE designer decided to keep the exponent before the mantissa, and the question is, why do they do so? Well, before I answer this question, please recall that in case of 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point number, if you want to move from the true exponent to the biased exponent, you add 127. And if you want to move from the biased exponent to the true exponent, you subtract 127. Okay. So the first advantage of using biased exponent is that it allows to have different numbers of positive and negative exponents, and I have discussed this on the previous slide. And keeping this biased exponent bits before the mantissa bits, this allows two floating point numbers to be compared easily. As you can see in this table, the biased exponent are in lexical order 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. This would not have been possible if exponent is saved in 2's complement. So this way, sorting real numbers may also be carried out by the integer unit, as bias exponent are the most significant bits. Okay dear students, after this theoretical understanding, now the stage is set to make our hands dirty by doing some conversion examples. I strongly recommend to use paper and pencil to do these conversion examples for better understanding. Let's do the first example. Suppose 0.09375 is a real number in base 10 we want to convert this to 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point representation. And for your ease, I have mentioned that over here: 1 bit for the sign, 8 bit for the exponent, biased exponent, and 23 bit for the mantissa. So we need to follow certain steps. First of all, we need to determine the sign of the mantissa. So sign is positive, so positive is represented by a 0 over here. Then we need to convert this decimal number to binary. Well, dear students, to convert the fractional part to binary, we just repeatedly multiply the fractional part by a 2. And finally, we read the numbers, this sequence of bits from top to bottom. So this decimal number is converted to its corresponding pure binary representation. Now we need to normalize. We need to normalize this number to get the mantissa and true exponent. So in case we want to normalize, we need to shift the binary point over here to 1, 2, 3, 4 position to the right, so that we have a 1 on the left of the binary point. So this pure binary number is normalized over here, and since we have moved the binary point to 4 position to the right, we have multiplied it by 2 raised to the power minus 4. Now to convert the real or unbiased exponent minus 4 to the biased exponent, we need to add 127 and get 123. And then we need to convert this 123 in base 10 to its corresponding 8-bit binary number, so that this can be stored over here in these 8 bits. The fifth step is we need to remove the leading one from the mantissa. So this is the mantissa 1.100. We need to remove this one because this one is implicit. We don't save this one inside the mantissa, rather we just save these bits which are on the right side of the binary point. So the leading one is removed and the mantissa is padded with zeros to make it of 23 bits. Now we just need to assemble the result as per this format. The sign is positive, so we have kept a 0 over here. Over here we need to keep the biased exponent, and this is the biased exponent. We have kept it over here, and these are the 23 bits of the mantissa, and they are kept over here. And finally, for the ease, you can convert this to a hex value. So this is the corresponding hex value. So this is how this 0.09375 base 10 number is stored inside the computer in 32 bits. Let us do another example for better understanding, and let us convert this time a number minus 123.3 in base 10 to 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point representation. So first of all, since the sign of the mantissa is minus, or sign of the real number is minus, so we keep a 1 over here. And now to convert this number to its corresponding pure binary, this 1, 2, 3 can easily be converted, I think. But for this 0.3, once again let me say that to convert the fractional part 0.3, we repeatedly multiply it by 2 and read this sequence of bits from top to bottom. And note the recurring sequence of this 0011 0011. This is a non-terminating sequence. So I have represented it over here like this. You can note this 123 is represented over here, and this 0.3 is represented over here, and once again this is a recurring sequence. Now the next step is to normalize to get the mantissa and true exponent. To normalize again, we need to shift the radix point by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 position to the left. So this is the normalized binary representation. Since we have moved the radix point to 6 position to the left, so that's why I have multiplied it by 2 raised to power plus 6. The next step is to determine the biased exponent. The true exponent is plus 6. So we add 127 to get 133, and then we convert this 133 to 8-bit binary. So this is the biased exponent. So finally we need to remove this leading one from the mantissa, and this is the mantissa we need to store over here in these 23 bits. Now dear students, since the mantissa include a recurring bit sequence, means it is too long to be stored in a finite number of bits. We cannot store all these bits in the 23 bits which are available to us. So you either chop the mantissa to make it 23 bits. This is known as rounding down. However, most computers either round the mantissa either up or down to the nearest value. And for this we need to perform an extra step. You check the 24th bit. If it is 0, simply chop, and if it is 1, then add 1 to the mantissa. In this case, since the 24th bit is 1, so I have added 1 to the mantissa and I have received this mantissa. You can note I have added 1 over here, so 1 and 1 0 and 1 carry, and we have a 1 over here, and rest of the bits are same. Well dear students, when it comes to rounding, there is a special case I just want to touch upon. If the 24th bit is 1 followed by a trail of zeros, let's suppose, in such a situation you check the 23rd bit. If it is 0, chop the 24th bit, and if it is 1, then add 1 to mantissa. And final step is assembling of the result. Since the number is negative, so we keep a 1 at the sign part. For the exponent and its sign, we store the 8-bit biased exponent over here, and then we have 23 bits of the mantissa stored over here. And we can always represent this in the corresponding hex value. Okay dear students, let me do it other way around now. Given a 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point representation of a decimal number 426A0000 in base 16, find the respective decimal value. So the first step we need to perform is we need to convert this hex number into the pure binary. Then we have to split it into the components, the sign bit, then the remaining 8 bits in the exponent part, and the 23 bits over here in the mantissa part. Since we have a 0 over here, that means the number is positive. Then we determine the biased exponent. So this is the biased exponent which is stored over here, and this 8-bit biased exponent in binary is equivalent to 132. Now we need to get the true exponent. So to move from biased to true exponent, we need to subtract 127. So we get plus 5. And finally, we know this is the mantissa, and we know that we have not saved the preceding one before this mantissa. So this is the preceding one that I have placed. Then I have placed the binary point, and these are the 23 bits which were stored over here. And this is of course the true exponent plus 5, and since this is plus 5, so I need to move the binary point 5 position to the right, making this number. And if I convert this number to decimal, I arrive at plus 58.5. So this 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point number maps to this decimal number. I hope this makes sense to you all. Let me do another example. Once again, this is the number we need to convert. We convert it first into a pure binary number. Then we split this into the components, the sign bit, biased exponent and mantissa. Since over here we have 0, so that means the number is positive. The biased exponent is 130. The true exponent can be obtained by subtracting 127 from it. We get plus 3. And finally this is the result. Once again, don't forget to write this implicit one before the significant bits. These are the significant or the mantissa bits which are written over here on the right of the binary point, and on the left of the binary point this is the implicit one we need to place, and multiplied by 2 power 3 because the true exponent is 3. So since this is a positive exponent, once again we need to move this decimal point to 3 position to the right. So this makes this binary number, and once we convert it to decimal we get plus 12.25. Okay dear students, after having a fair idea as to how IEEE 754 standard represent a real number using 32 bits, let us try to understand the range and precision for this 32-bit floating point number. Well, by range we mean the largest positive as well as the negative number that can be represented using this encoding. An exponent of all ones is reserved, so the largest biased exponent is 254. So the largest true exponent becomes to be plus 127. All ones in the mantissa part along with the implied 1 makes the significant equal to 2 minus 2 raised to power minus 23. Please do the math. Thus the range of a 32-bit floating point number is plus minus 3.403 into 10 raised to the power plus 38. So this is the binary 2 raised to power 127, and this is in pure decimal. So this is a huge range. Let us see the precision now. Precision means the smallest possible fractional number. Well, over here the exponent of all 0 is also reserved. So the smallest biased exponent is 1, and its corresponding true exponent is minus 126. All zeros in the mantissa or significant part along with an implied 1 as shown over here. This makes the significant equal to 1. So the smallest fractional number that can come in 32-bit floating point representation is plus minus 1 into 2 raised to power minus 126, or 1.1755 into 10 raised to power minus 38. Okay, so other than the 32-bit precision, we have other precisions as well. The IEEE 754 standard that came in 2019 give provision to store floating point numbers in 32 bits called single precision. in 64 bits called double precision, in 128 bits called quadruple precision, and in 256 bits called octuple precision. And of course, we have already discussed on previous slide that these different storage patterns gives the user different range and precision. There is one more point that I want to clarify over here is that these four storage layouts are given by IEEE 754 standard. Whether these are supported on your specific machine depends on at least three parameters: the hardware of your system, the installed operating system, and the compiler you are using. Well, dear students, in case of C and C++, we have the float, double, and long double data type that support this single precision, double precision, and quadruple precision respectively. And frankly speaking, I have never tried to use or enable the support of octuple precision numbers on my system, nor I have checked out whether today's C or C++ compilers give a data type for octuple precision. Last but not the least, IEEE 754 standard for this single precision, that is that use 23 bits for Mantissa, give a precision of 6 decimal digits, which is far better than the 2 decimal digit precision in case of the 32-bit fixed point representation. So I think we all need to appreciate the designers of IEEE 754 format who all make it happen. Well, dear students, other than integer units inside the CPU, modern computers have special floating point units, which are designed to carry out operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, square root, and so on the floating point numbers. Well, interested students should try to study this topic at their own. I will try giving you an assignment on how floating point arithmetic is done on floating point numbers. But let me touch upon some problems that programmers face while doing floating point arithmetic. And let me first talk about the concept of overflow. An overflow occurs when a mathematical operation results in a value that falls outside the range of a data type. And in case of a 32-bit floating point operation, any result that fall outside this 3.4 into 10 raised power 38 or this minus 3.4 into 10 raised power 38 will be rounded to infinity. For example, if a contains this number and you multiply a with a, an overflow will occur. Now let us talk about the underflow as well. An underflow occurs when an operation results in a value that is smaller than the smallest number that can be stored as a floating point number. And remember, there is no underflow in integer arithmetic. And in case of a 32-bit floating point operation, any result that is less than 2 raised to power minus 126, both positive or negative, will cause an underflow. For example, if a is a variable that contains 3 into 10 raised to power minus 30, then if you multiply a with a, that will cause an underflow. So good programs must detect rounding or truncation errors as well as overflow and underflow. And better programs should also raise alerts whenever they occur. And before I close, let me just touch upon some special floating point values having special meanings in IEEE 754 standard. The first is infinity. All ones in the exponent field and all zeros in the mantissa field represent infinity in IEEE standard. The sign bit distinguishes between negative infinity and positive infinity. And operations with infinite values are well defined in IEEE floating point. Similarly, all zeros in the exponent field and all zeros in the mantissa field represent a 0 in IEEE standard. Even though we have a plus 0 and a minus 0 having distinct representation, though they both compare as equal. Dear students, when an operation is performed by a computer on a pair of operands which results in an indeterminate answer, it is called NaN, not a number, in IEEE standard. So all ones in the exponent field and not all zeros in the mantissa field represent a NaN. Similarly, if the exponent bits are all zeros and the mantissa bits are not all zeros, the value being represented is very small, and this is known as a subnormal or denormalized number. So these special values will of course come into play when you will be doing floating point arithmetic. Okay, dear students, that is all for today's session. I strongly recommend that you must do a lot of practice of converting real numbers in decimal format to the corresponding 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point, and vice versa as well. This is required so that you should have a very clear understanding as to how these floating point numbers are stored inside our computer systems. Once you get your answers, you can confirm them on the online calculator available at this link. I hope today's session was informative for you all. If you have liked it, please subscribe my YouTube channel and share it with your friends. I wish you all the best. Happy learning and Allah Hafiz.